They weren't wearing badges, they didn't flash sirens, and they didn't care for courtrooms. But when four large men in matching fedoras and suits appeared in a back alley or near a nightclub, the message was clear. It was time to get out of town. This wasn't the Mafia. This was the LAPD's elite and infamous Hat Squad, a covert unit of detectives so feared in 1940s and 50s Los Angeles that their presence alone sent gangsters into hiding. The hats weren't just fashion statements. They were warning signs, signals that someone was about to be pushed out of the city, or worse, disappear entirely. The legend of the Hat Squad began with two towering officers, Clarence "Red" Stromwall and Max Herman. Standing well over 6 feet and built like brick walls, they turned heads just by entering a room. But when they started wearing identical straw hats and tailored suits, they became icons of intimidation. They looked nothing like beat cops, and that was the point. These men weren't patrolling traffic or writing citations. They were hunters, and criminals were the prey. When Ed Benson and Harry Crowder later joined the team in the early 1950s, their now famous snap-brim fedoras became more than just matching outfits. They were a signature, proof that the department had its own way of dealing with organized crime. By most accounts, these men weren't subtle. Collectively weighing in at over 1,000 pounds, they filled any doorway they walked through. And when they did, witnesses say the atmosphere shifted. Conversations died, people scattered, and known mobsters simply got in their cars and drove the other direction. They weren't wearing uniforms, but everyone knew exactly who they were. "My ID is on my head," they used to say, pointing at the hat. It was a uniform all its own, one that needed no introduction. Officially, they worked under the Robbery-Homicide Division, but in reality, they operated far outside traditional police boundaries. They didn't collect fingerprints. They didn't wait for warrants. Their specialty was fear. Their job wasn't to arrest people, it was to push them out of the city through psychological warfare, threats, and relentless pressure. And during a time when the East Coast Mafia was carving into LA's underbelly, their tactics were exactly what the city wanted. Bugsy Siegel had brought East Coast casino muscle to Hollywood. Jack Dragna ran a quiet but powerful empire in LA. Someone needed to send a message that the city wouldn't fold under pressure. The Hat Squad became that message. Their tactics were as creative as they were questionable. One time, they disguised an LAPD vehicle as a phone company truck just to plant a listening device inside a mob-connected business. Another time, they parked outside a suspect's house for days, not saying a word, just to let him know they were watching. According to a former officer, "We did things that would get us indicted today." That wasn't an exaggeration. The Hat Squad was known to carry out beatings, bug homes without warrants, and show up at clubs just to ruin a gangster's night. And their operation. This was off-the-books law enforcement, and the LAPD for a time seemed to love it. Their targets were some of the most dangerous men in the country. Jack Dragna, known as the silent boss of LA, kept a firm grip on extortion, gambling, and prostitution rings across Southern California. Bugsy Siegel, flashier and more violent, ran casino ventures and brought attention to the city from national crime syndicates. But even these men, with all their power, didn't want to see four fedoras walking toward them. Stories circulated quickly through LA's underground. One tale tells of a Hollywood club owner who sealed his back entrance with bricks just to prevent the Hat Squad from making a surprise visit. These weren't just cops. They were myths wrapped in suits. Despite, or perhaps because of, their shadowy methods, the Hat Squad became legends. The public saw them as the last line of defense against organized crime. And in an era when city officials were terrified of LA turning into another Chicago, the squad had full permission to go as far as they needed to go. But as their reach grew, so did the consequences. Internal affairs began getting complaints, whispers of planted evidence, rumors of suspects getting roughed up in alleys where no security cameras ever existed. Still, nothing stuck. The fedoras stayed pressed, the suits stayed sharp, and the squad kept working in the dark. But nothing lasts forever. In the late 1950s, the Hat Squad began unraveling from within. One of the squad members, Jerry Wooters, developed ties, too close, some said, with Jack Whalen, also known as the Enforcer, a hitman working under Dragna. When Whalen had a run-in with Mickey Cohen's crew and was gunned down in a restaurant, Suspicion fell not only on the mob, but also on the LAPD. It was the first time the public started wondering if the Hat Squad wasn't just fighting organized crime, but becoming part of it. That event triggered investigations. Internal Affairs wanted to know how much authority these men actually had. How many unofficial operations had they run? How many rules had they bent or broken? By the early 1960s, the unit was quietly dissolved. Some officers were absorbed into other divisions. Others took retirement packages. A few went on to lead respectable lives. Some even became judges. But despite decades of allegations, no member of the Hat Squad was ever formally disciplined for their behavior. Their legacy didn't die with their unit. You can see echoes of the Hat Squad in noir films, detective novels, and the very DNA of LA's most aggressive police units that followed, like Crash, the SIS, and the infamous Gangster Squad. Each of these carried forward the idea that sometimes the law needed to operate outside the law. Sometimes justice came not from a badge, but from a shadow on the sidewalk. The Hat Squad wasn't just a group of detectives. They were the city's answer to a question no one wanted to ask publicly. How far are we willing to go to keep Los Angeles clean? The truth is complicated. They cleaned up crime, but they also blurred the lines between protector and predator. They built a reputation not by following the rules, but by making sure no one else could ignore them. Today, the hats are gone. The streets have changed. But in some neighborhoods, old-timers still tell stories. Stories about how a Cadillac with no plates might roll slow past your club. How 4 giant men in fedoras once stood outside a bar, and by morning, it was boarded up. The Hat Squad might not appear in history textbooks, but they left their fingerprints on the city all the same. Just not the kind you can dust for.